Iran has appointed Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the late leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as the country's third supreme leader. The decision was made by Iran's Assembly of Experts after the death of his father in a U.S. Israel airstrike in late February. Mojtaba Khamenei is 56 years old and a conservative cleric. He has long had strong ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC). He has been chosen as his successor, as the war enters its 10th day and fresh missile and drone strikes reverberate across the Middle East. His appointment marks the first time leadership has passed from father to son in the Islamic Republic. Many analysts believe his leadership signals a harder line against the United States and Israel during the ongoing war. Even after Mojtaba Khamenei became supreme leader, tensions have remained extremely high. Israeli military officials have indicated that Mojtaba Khamenei could also be considered a target. Some U.S. politicians have suggested he might face the same fate as his father if the conflict continues. The U.S. government has criticized his appointment, with President Donald Trump describing the choice as a big mistake. At the same time, Russia and some regional allies have expressed support for the new leader.
Whether you're just putting somebody else in place, carrying out their theocratic intentions to eradicate Israel and to go after, quote, the great Satan. So we need to make sure they've got people in charge of their country who are no longer trying to destabilize the world, fund Hamas, fund Hezbollah. So I back the president on that, but I think he is correct to be trying to do that through force, through diplomacy, take out their conventional weapons, take out their nuclear capability. I agree. Take out, I think you said Senator Kennedy was talking about taking out some of their Navy. Agree with that. And I'm glad we've taken out a lot of their bad guys. But they can't install another crazy person, or we're going to be dealing with Iran for decades to come. So keep applying the pressure. But I do not want to be building soccer fields in Tehran like we were in Baghdad, 15 years ago. And I'm sure you agree with that. I don't want to be in that exercise again.
How do you define, Congressman, unconditional surrender, and can that be achieved without ground troops?
Well, I think that is a difficult question, right? I mean, again, the president went in and made the determination it was in our national security interest. That we've dismantled their nuclear capability. We've weakened their ability for striking Israel, advancing their ability to get to strike us. I think when we have some degree of a regime there that is able to be put in place that is not the continuation of what we've been dealing with since 19. President defined the result here is when they cry uncle, right? I mean, that was very, Trump speak for, hey, you're gonna basically do what we're telling you to do. So we'll know that when we see it, but I think it's when we know for sure period of time to try to make sure we've got a regime in place that is going to be in our interest. I'm all ears and listening to the president, but I know this: if they come to us with a supplemental funding bill, which just seems potentially likely, I'm 79. Now, again, can you do that without boots on the ground? That is my strong preference. I'm like you. I'm not looking for us to have boots on the ground. Now, do you need to have some strategic people on the ground for some period? Is not going to continue their radical agenda.
Congressman Chip Roy, you share a lot of our...
Going to be asking those questions. How long is this going to take? Are boots going to be on the ground? I do not want to be into the nation building exercise again, but I'm with you to make sure that we're taking out their capabilities and make sure that whoever is installed.
The war has now entered its second week, with continued airstrikes and missile attacks. U.S. and Israeli strikes. Recent attacks have targeted Iranian oil depots and refining facilities, ballistic missile infrastructure, military bases and drone factories. Residents in Tehran reported large fires and heavy smoke after strikes on oil storage facilities. Iran has responded with missile and drone attacks across the Middle East, targeting Israel, U.S. bases in the region, Gulf countries and shipping routes. Some Iranian missiles have also been intercepted over neighboring countries. The conflict is creating major geopolitical consequences. Oil prices have surged due to threats to the Strait of Hormuz shipping route. Gulf states are increasing military defenses. Western and European countries are deploying naval forces to protect shipping. Analysts warn the conflict could expand into a wider regional war if diplomacy fails.
Well, that would certainly help. So Ali Khamenei says we're going to relentlessly avenge the blood of our leader and our people, meaning the Ayatollah. Trump must pay and will pay. Trump came back and says, I have no idea who this guy is, who they're talking about. What is your take on the bravado we're still getting from them even though they've been devastated, we're moving past Tehran now into the heartland, targeting the IRGC in all 31 provinces.
Well, I think part of this is for a domestic audience. I think the regime is afraid for its life, and it's trying to signal to Iranian citizens that they're still in charge and they're still in control. I don't think the Iranian people believe it. You know, we saw hundreds of thousands of people out in the street last January, in response to which tens of thousands were murdered by regime goons. So I think this is partly a play for the regime to convince a very doubtful Iranian public that they're still calling the shots.
So right now, growing questions about the future of Iran as the terror regime names the Ayatollah's son as its new supreme leader. He's a hardline cleric, widely considered more radical than his dad.
President Trump warning, quote, he's going to have to get approval from us. If he doesn't get approval from us, he's not going to last long. I know you've talked about the three goals, which is the nuclear weapons, make sure they don't have nuclear weapons, the ballistic missile threat, and the terror proxies. This is what the New York Times is saying about about Iran being able to retrieve their uranium. They say American intelligence agencies have determined that Iran or potentially another group could retrieve Iran's primary store of highly enriched uranium, even though it was entombed under the country's nuclear site at Isfahan by U.S. strikes last year. Officials familiar with the intelligence said that Iran can now get to the uranium through a very narrow access point. What's your reaction to that? We don't want them to have access to this.
Well, it sounds like the military just added another target to the list. The Iranians are going to keep trying at this. The reason why this war started is because of their determination to preserve a pathway to a bomb. So it shouldn't surprise us at all that they're going to do what they can to recover access to their highly enriched uranium. But we have a play here as well, and that is the same play that we made last June when we targeted the nuclear weapons program. We can drop a couple of bombs on that target, I imagine, and make it pretty difficult to excavate that uranium.
Former ambassador at large and counterterrorism coordinator Nathan Sales served in the State Department in President Trump's first term, and he joins us now. Nathan, thanks so much for joining the program. So we had a lot of experts on, and they've been across, other networks as well. And many of the people following this didn't think that they were going to choose the son. They got it wrong. Why do you think?
Well, I think the Iranian regime is doubling down on its failed strategy of trying to defy and wage war on the United States and the West. This is an establishment choice. He may not have been the consensus frontrunner, but picking the son of the old leader signals continuity. And it's very much a meet the new boss, same as the old boss type situation. One other thing to emphasize about this new guy, he has very strong ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the sort of shock troops of the Iranian regime and its exporter of revolutionary ideology around the region. Of course, that's just formalizing what has always been the case. The IRGC has long been the power behind the throne when it comes to the Iranian regime. So this just sort of brings that role out of the shadows and into the spotlight.
In summary, Iran's new supreme leader is Mojtaba Khamenei, appointed after his father was killed in a U.S. Israel strike. The new leader faces direct threats and possible targeting as the war continues. U.S. and Israeli forces are still conducting airstrikes on Iranian military and energy infrastructure, while Iran is launching retaliatory missile and drone attacks across the region.
That's all for today's news roundup from Colex TV. If you enjoyed these updates, subscribe to our channel for daily highlights, analysis, and exclusive behind-the-scenes sports stories and news from around the globe. Thanks for watching.